What's up, everybody? I'm Damon Hatfield, Senior Editor at IGN. I'm joined by Anthony Gallegos.
Hello.
PC Editor and Reviewer of Diablo 3. He gave it a 9.5.
I loved it.
Which in the IGN scheme of things is amazing. I know many of you have had time to read the review and comment on it, and as we like to do, Anthony has gone through and selected some of the best comments on the review that he will respond to you right now.
Yep.
We call it a comment comeback. Let's get right to it. R. Givajax, let's start with him. He says, 9.5 does seem a bit generous, but it's the reviewer's opinion. I love the core game itself, meaning the story, gameplay, and graphics, but I was very disappointed by the short length of the game. All other $60 RPGs I've played have been longer than this game. Hell, most shooters I've played were longer than this.
See, I'm not quite sure what game you played, because for me it was a lot longer than that. It took me almost 20 hours to get through my first playthrough. But that being said, I really appreciated your comment because, you know, it's like you said, it is ultimately my opinion, and these were I pointed out the things that I really loved about it and the things that I didn't like about it as much, and length was never an issue for me. But I totally get it. I understand exactly why you love those things, and maybe for you just had a much greater expectation of the length, although I do think it's much longer than most shooters these days.
I don't know what shooters you're playing that are longer than 50 hours. This is Kazi Chameleon. Says, the fact that the launch totally face-planted and wasn't reflected in the review is sort of bogus.
Yeah, and I get that. You know, I get that you weren't alone in that. A lot of people were wondering as we're doing this review in progress over the course of weeks, you know, the first 36 hours of that game were pretty miserable, especially for people that took the day off. I totally recognize that. But ultimately, this review is something that people are going to come to, you know, years from now, months from now, and what happened in the first 36 hours will not reflect on that experience for them, and ultimately didn't reflect on my experience after those first few hours. So do I really hold that against the game in the long run? I don't think so.
In the great scheme of things, that launch day,
it's pretty trivial.
Yeah, exactly. This is Excellent. They say, how did this game get a 9 for graphics? It's really outdated. But then one of the IGN readers responded, Cytec says, graphics is a misnomer somewhat. IGN usually rates the aesthetic qualities combined with the graphical power. Technically, the graphics are not very impressive, but the overall art design and look and feel is top-notch.
And that's just it. You're so right. Like, it is kind of a misnomer, right? We say graphics, and yes, graphics are these pixels put together to look really pretty. And if we were just going off of a technical aspect, something like a Crysis or something would always be a 10 and everything else would be bad. You know, like a 16-bit looking game would be terrible. But for us, it comes down to the style of it. Is it beautiful for what it's trying to accomplish? Is it doing what it's trying to do really well? And I think Diablo, the artists at Blizzard, know how to do a certain style that it looks great whether you have an amazing system or whether you have a bad system. They make it really scalable, and it just has a certain look to it that really stands out on its own.
Zeke8181. He says, 8 is probably what this game should get. It's by no means earth-shattering. It has very little replay value and feels like a chore half the time. Characters don't feel like they're getting stronger when they level. There's enough there to make it a decent Diablo knockoff, but it's lost the magic of the previous games. Good enough to play once, but bland enough to be forgettable. That's harsh.
I just can't agree with you. I think that the replayability is I gave it a 10 for a reason. I mean, I've already played through it twice, and immediately, it is the first game I've ever played where as soon as I finished it, I did not walk away, go to the bathroom. I immediately clicked start again, and I just started playing through again. And I've done that now into the hell difficulty, you know. And I know I'm not alone. All of our coworkers are just talking about it day after day. We're all so hooked, you know. And as far as the not feeling more powerful when you level up, I can't agree with that either, because every time you level up in this game, you get some new power, some new ability for your character. And the previous Diablo games weren't like that at all. Sometimes you'd level, you'd get nothing. Sometimes you'd level and you'd earn certain points that you would then distribute maybe, and you didn't even know if you were distributing them right. They've done such a good job with the leveling this to make sure every level feels significant.
This is Steve-O the Star Wars fan. I'm sure you and him would be very good
friends. We go way back.
Anthony has been known to like Star Wars from time to time. His comment involves spoilers, so fair warning. Spoilers ahead from Steve-O the Star Wars fan. Great review, but I disagree about the story. I found it to be fascinating and fun, and I love how Tyrael gives up his immorality to fight for the humans, especially, and I love how Diablo's return is explained via the Black Soulstone. To me, these are clever story details, cliched as they might be. I think people spend too much time worrying about what's cliche and what isn't. Were you critical of the story in your review?
I mean, I do think the story is really cliche, and there's nothing wrong with a cliched story. They're like, you know, I've watched the Avatar movie, and I thought the Avatar movie was great, even though that story in its most basic form has been told plenty of times. But Diablo, I just thought that the dialogue was really cheesy, even though the voice acting was really good.
No man could survive such a thing. Who are you? What are you?
And I just didn't really feel like they did anything great with the story to draw you in. You know, that being said, if you liked it, that's awesome. Like, I'm glad. Like, there are certain aspects of this game that I know other people are gonna like a lot more than me and hate more than me too.
This is Arctilad. He says, did this article mention the horrible DRM? I love the game. It's fun and hollow, like a Jersey Shore episode. But logging in for a single-player game and having them take away your ability to because of a server maintenance is total crap.
So that's a big point of contention on the
like,
internet,
do you
right?
the game, like, is it the game's fault that Blizzard incorporated this DRM? Like,
Right, so for people that don't know, if you're not playing Diablo 3, you have to be online to play. No questions asked, you have to sign into a Battle.net account. If Battle.net servers go down, or if, you know, whatever happens, you don't have an internet connection, you're not playing Diablo 3. That's the bottom line. But to me, the trade-off there is what makes it worth it, that I didn't even really think it was worth mentioning. You know, yeah, you have to be online all the time, but you're also getting access to basically click 2 buttons and all of a sudden be in a game with your friends immediately. Like hardly any load times, anything like that. You're also getting access to an auction house, which I think is really great, and eventually a real money auction house. All these things, a real money auction house, the ability to play with your friends, these require an online connection, especially the real money auction house, because they don't want people pirating items and cheating the system. So for me, it doesn't really bother me. Most of the time when I play with a PC, I'm always online. Like the idea that I'm going to be traveling or something with my PC is kind of such a long shot to me that it doesn't really bother me for the security options and the benefits I get from being always online.
So it doesn't bother you, but do you feel like it's the reviewer's role to address that in the review? If a game does use sort of strict DRM like this?
I feel like it's only a problem if it would have only been problematic if we had seen that server issues had been persistent after that first 36 hours. Like if it was like every day something was crashing and stuff, I'd be like, well, yeah, this is crap. But they worked it out and now it's running smoothly, and ultimately it just doesn't really bother me. Like I want them to do what I feel they need to do in order to protect their game. Like that doesn't bother me.
Couple more comments here. Jay Somniac says, Metacritic and Amazon both show negative user reviews far outweighing the positive reviews. It's amazing that a game can get a near perfect score when the majority of the players hate it.
So I think it's a little bit of a misrepresentation to assume that the majority of players hate it. If there's one thing I've learned by reading Amazon reviews, you know, part reviews for PC, parts on Newegg and that sort of thing, is that the people that are the most vocal are the people that are the angriest. You know, you don't typically think to yourself, man, I love this product so much, I just want to go leave a comment, or I want to go leave a review. But if you're hating it, something really irked you the wrong way, you want to let people know. And we saw this with Call of Duty as well. The last Call of Duty Modern Warfare 3 got universal appeal from critics on Metacritic, but then like a 2 in the average user scores. People love to hate on things that are great. And you know, with anonymity on the internet, they're even more likely to do so. So I would say those do not represent the vast majority of players.
Final comment comes from MindPurge001, who says, people, will you ever learn? I mean, seriously, this is a hack and slash game made to the golden standard. That's what Diablo has always been about. Skills, weapons, hack slash boom, pew, blood, explosions, death. It's like comparing Tetris to Doom, or Risk to Connect 4, or Settlers of Catan to Checkers, or Metallica to Aerosmith. All of these are pretty cool in their own right, but totally different and incomparable to the other. What is he addressing?
So what he's talking about is so many people were like, how does Diablo 3 get a 9.5 when game X got an 8, when game Y got a 9, right? You know, it's like, and he's right. Diablo 3 does set like a gold standard for hack and slash RPGs. Like for what it sets out to do, like our reviews often come down to, is the game, to what extent is it fun in accomplishing what it's trying to do? Like I wouldn't weight a racing game necessarily against a first-person shooter, you know, because those are two different experiences. And I think that that's what he's pointing out. Diablo 3 is an amazing version of the hack and slash RPG. You know, that being said, it's not necessarily better than Uncharted 3 or something to me overall, you know, whatever that even means. That I would never compare them because they really are apples and oranges. And that's something that a lot of readers fail to realize.
Well, thanks, Anthony. Diablo 3 is out now. Thanks for reading the review. Thanks for commenting on it. Let's keep this discussion going. That's what IGN is, a giant conversation about video games with people who love them. So feel free to hit us up on Twitter, comment on our articles. We always respond whenever we can. So
thank you for keeping the discussion smart. I really do appreciate it.
Keep it locked right here to IGN.com for everything video games.